This is Peter Helland, and I'm in the Philippines, and I have a friend who's a doctor in theology back in South Bend, called me and said he thought that the next pope would be from the Philippines. Well, we found out the next day he's not from the Philippines. He's from Dolton, Illinois, which is right on the practically on the Indiana border, straight west from Notre Dame University, from South Bend, about 78 miles. And he went to high school seminary in Helland, Michigan, which is 100 miles from South Bend. And I can relate to him because out of elementary school, I went to the Holy Name Seminary in Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, I was enrolled and ready to go. And at the last second, I said the place seemed too strange and too weird. So I said, well, I'll wait till I get out of college to go to the seminary. A lot of people said very smart because they had a lot of homosexuals and false teaching going on in 1966 time. And I escaped a bullet, a lot of people told me. Only God would know. But I went to Notre Dame, and immediately they jammed evolution down my throat at every turn. And I knew immediately that you cannot reconcile the evolution. It was taught by priests, that evolution and what Jesus and the apostles in the early church taught, you can put them together. So to escape getting trapped, I would just tell people I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God because the God that they want me to believe in is the opposite of what they're teaching me. Because the God that we're supposed to believe in wrote the Ten Commandments with his finger, and they say, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. That's Exodus 20. Exodus 31:17 says the Sabbath is a sign forever between me and the people of Israel, that in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. And it says, and God gave to Moses, when he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, the 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone, written with the finger of God. And then Jesus said in Mark 10:6, but from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Now, when I talk to many highfalutin theology professors at Notre Dame, and when I talk to like the dean of the graduate school, they openly admit, once you ask them the right questions, yeah, Jesus and the apostles and the early church did teach and believe in a literal 6-day creation. But they don't because of science. Now, when did science come into the picture here? The Civil War. Civil War was a huge battle, and a lot of people say that war is still going on. There's more books written on the Civil War still on no other subject except theology. Civil War. Mark Knoll, who's the famous Christian historian at Notre Dame, when he came to South Bend, it was in the front page of the paper. He said, theology today, I'm paraphrasing, theology today has been mostly determined by the canons of Sherman and Grant. Okay. And now theology has to go through science. Okay. You used to go through the Scripture. Now you're not allowed to go through Scripture. You have to go through science. Now, what is science? Well, it's witchcraft and magic, maybe at best. And Jeremiah said, they'll look at the rock and they'll say, that's your father. The priest that taught us geology, our freshman year, a class I didn't want to take, and they said, you have to take it. He's famous for saying, it's not about the rock of ages, Christ. It's about the age of the rock. Okay, so we're supposed to look at that rock and say, that's where we came from. And that's what we do. Now, the Pope Leo XIV, his name was Robert, the new Pope, his name is Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost from Dolton, Illinois. Okay. And all you have to do is you got to figure out what he believes. And what he believes is 99% chance of what he was told to believe, what the teachers told him, this is what we want you to believe. Okay. But he's also influenced by his parents. So his mom, went to DePaul University. That's right downtown Chicago. It's called a research university. If you look up research university, it says almost invariably all research universities believe in evolution. Evolution's the basis. His dad was a Navy. My dad was Navy, World War II. His dad was superintendent of a public school district. Okay. So you're looking at pure evolution here, background. Then he goes to college in Villanova. That's Philadelphia. It says it's a research university, pure evolution. Okay. Now, his only hope is that he's up in Helland. That's a conservative, reformed area. But Chicago is notorious for nothing but evolution, like Madison, Wisconsin. Nothing but evolution. Very rare exceptions. This is the background that he's from. So he's gonna assume that evolution is true, like Pope Francis. Then he was the head of a seminary, I guess, in Peru for 10 years. The likelihood is that he goes along with almost all the priests, all the bishops, all the cardinals, and all the popes since Vatican II. He goes along that the earth is old. And once you believe the earth is old, now you're not following Jesus. You've abandoned Christ. Why? Jesus said from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. And Jesus is the creator of the world. Jesus is the one that said in 6 days, God created the heavens and the earth and rested on the seventh. All the church fathers said the earth was around 6,000 years old. Origen said, well, maybe it's 10,000. Okay. Now they're all teaching the world, the universe is 14 billion and the earth is 4 billion. They go along with that because that's what they were told. And when you're young and impressionable, you believe what you're told, and it hardly gets away from you. I had lunch a couple times with Kevin McDonald, who's from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Kevin McDonald is a famous professor and author, and basically an atheist. And I said, well, you went 12 years to Catholic school. What happened? Well, his freshman year at Madison, he had apparently a Jewish philosopher, and in one class, he lost his faith. He started believing in evolution. So when they grab you out of your home, and they grab you and you go to college, you end up, in a lot of cases, you believe what you were told, okay? And the one thing my mom said, she wasn't into telling me much, but she did say one thing: don't believe everything you read. Well, the question is, does this new pope believe like St. Francis? Does he believe in Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, in evolution? Because then he doesn't agree with Jesus and the apostles and the early church fathers. Jesus said, God made them, but from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Jesus said in the 10 Commandments, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Sabbath is a sign forever between me and the people of Israel, that in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth. So when you celebrate and you worship on Sunday, that whole Sunday is a sign, just like the rainbow in the sky is a sign that God will not destroy the world again by a flood. The whole day of Sunday is a sign that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. The Apostles' Creed, which every Christian normally holds as the essentials of the faith. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. Well, if anybody wanted to say, well, what do you mean he created heaven and earth? Like, what do you mean? How? It's all over the scripture. In 6 days. On the first day, he said, let there be light. On the second day, he said this. On the sixth day, he created man out of the dust. We know how God created the earth. Oh, but we have rocks that prove that the earth is old. And there's no way the Bible should be read literally. Well, just wait. Did God say to Adam and Eve, if you eat the fruit off that tree, the day you eat, you'll die? Was that literal? Figurative? Did they decide that it was figurative? And are we going to decide? No, we go to Jesus and we say, Jesus, help me interpret these scriptures because I, for certain, don't know how to interpret them. That's a good position. You ask him, or you discover, what did Jesus believe about creation? No, we don't do that. We ask science. We don't ask Jesus. We don't ask the apostles. We don't study, what did the apostles teach? No, we study science. Why? Because of the canons of Sherman and Grant, okay? The Northerners won that war, and they destroyed what Richard Weaver and a lot of people said was the last Christian nation on the earth, the Southerners. They were the Bible Belt. Destroyed them and replaced their theology with the magic and witchcraft of science. Lincoln was having seances. His wife was having seances in the White House all the time. Chicago was a seance place. Chicago is gone. It's one of the most wicked cities in the country. It's gone. That's where the Pope is coming from. Dalton is right on the southern part of Chicago. Do you think he can see clearly? Do you think he follows Jesus on the number one doctrine of the church as far as the Apostles' Creed? I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. He created it in 6 days. Do you believe the new Pope believes he created it in 6 days? Does Pope Francis believe the world was created in 6 days, and that was 6,000 years ago, which all the church fathers held to, which the apostles and Jesus held to, which every major theologian, no matter how liberal they are, will confess, yeah, that's true. Jesus, the apostles, the church fathers believed in 6-day creation, literal 6 days. Well, how come none of you believe that now? Because we can't get promoted. We could have never achieved this position we have had we followed Jesus and the apostles and the church fathers on that issue. Yeah, now you're talking the truth. To get where they are, they had to abandon Christ, abandon his word, abandon the apostles, and abandon the church fathers on the fundamental doctrine of creation. They had to renounce Christ's position on creation. They had to renounce the apostles' position on creation. They had to renounce the church fathers to get where they're at. Now, hopefully I'm wrong, okay? Hopefully I'm wrong. But if you're not following Jesus on creation, that you're Adam and Eve, I mean, even at Vatican II, Cardinal Ruffini, who was the teaching cardinal, he insisted it's of the essence of the faith to believe in the historicity of Adam and Eve, but then he held to an old earth. So what does he do with, from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. He believes the earth is 14 billion years old, but he wants to hold to a historical Adam and Eve. That's why I said I don't believe in God for like 3 years, but then I dropped out of Notre Dame after 3 years, and I was going to go, I said, get me to a Bible school that believes in creation, because when I dropped out, I, landed onto Morris and Whitcomb. I landed onto the beginning of the creationist movement. It just started. And I go, yeah, these are the people I believe in. They're following Christ on creation. But I had a chance to go back and finish my senior year at Notre Dame because they had Campus Crusade for Christ, who I thought believed in creation. But then I just looked, and one of the leaders of Campus Crusade for Christ when I was there, he became a very well-known, he is a very well-known theology professor, and he's written many, many books. And I'm looking, and he wrote a book on the Catholic faith as an evangelical, and he goes, there's nothing on evolution. He's talking about the Catholic Church. He's got almost nothing. So he says, well, this is an intramural. This is really not an issue, what the church teaches on evolution. And they really don't have a position on creation or evolution. And I'm going, doesn't it say in Jude, earnestly contend for the faith once delivered? And the essence of the faith is God spoke the world into existence about 6,000 years ago. Spoke on the first day, spoke on the second day, spoke on the third day. See, in order to get to these positions of professor or whatever, you got to buy into the canons of Sherman and Grant. You have to bow to the science directing your theology. They call it gatekeepers. They're gatekeepers. There's certain issues like Mark Knoll. Mark Knoll, big professor at Notre Dame. Well, for the longest, for like 30 years, he held, well, slavery is obviously, the slave-master relationship is a sin according to the Bible. And then he goes, yeah, after 30 years, I guess I decided the Bible does not say that relationship is automatically a sin. And then he gets real emotional about people that believe in 6-day creation. Okay. Well, how do you think he got into Notre Dame? He came from Wheaton to Notre Dame because he believes in evolution. That's why Notre Dame let him in. You look at the history of Notre Dame, after World War II, Saul Alinsky, he wrote Rules for Radicals. He dedicated the book like to the devil. He's best friends with Jacques Maritain, best friends with Theodore Hesburgh. Notre Dame was so infiltrated that it's not funny. This is coming out in Culture Wars, E. Michael Jones, some of his people who are doing good research on this. But the point is this, that at the essence of communism and things like that is evolution. Okay, they want you to deny the essential Christian doctrine of creation. They want you to abandon Christ on that issue. They want you to abandon the apostles and the early church fathers and get you to go with science. So that Jesus didn't create the world in 6 days, about 6,000 years ago, even though he said he did and he believed it, and even though the apostles taught that. Well, they were wrong. That's the official position. They were wrong. So find out what the new pope believes on that. I'd be shocked if he's following Christ and the apostles and the church fathers on that issue. I'd be shocked if he is, and hopefully I'm wrong. Forgot to add maybe one of the most important things. Pope Leo XIV, the new pope, where did he go to seminary to become a priest? Catholic Theological Union, downtown Chicago, right next to the University of Chicago in Hyde Park, and it's super liberal. University of Chicago is super, super liberal. And what I mean by liberal, a total embracing of evolution. Let's boil it down to what it actually is. They believe everything is by chance, just chance. Where Jesus said, a sparrow can't fall to the ground. Your hairs are numbered on your head because God controls everything minutely. And this is infiltrated everywhere. And if we don't fight it, we don't have a foundation.